What's a really scary fact that people should know about? Story 1. Vultures circling over a house is usually because of a gas leak. They smell ethyl mercaptan, which is added to gas to give it a smell, and it's also the smell that comes from rotten meat. Answer: I have a neighbor who are an elderly coupler, and one day there are multiple vultures circling around their house. I was concerned because one is on top of the roof, and there are a couple just walking around the front yard. Never seen that before, and after that day, I was thinking, oh my God, are they dead? And after watching for some time, I saw them sharing meat from a dead animal on the ground, and saw the elderly couple after that day, so I'm sure it's not them. Story 2. Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. Story 3. We'll eventually need to find a replacement for our global banana Cavendish supply. Panama disease is highly virulent and spreading, and there is no known cure. Also, it's happened before. The Gros Michel was the main banana before the Cavendish replaced it. Answer: a more fun fact than this, to lighten the mood. Banana flavoring was conceived of before Panama disease wiped out all but the most hardy species. The modern-day Cavendish banana being the primary example. So when you hear people say they don't like artificial banana flavoring, they're really saying that they don't like the flavor of original, real, or OG bananas. Story 4. Well, antibiotic-resistant bacteria are evolving faster than we can develop new antibiotics to fight them. Answer: the issue isn't really a scientific one, but an economic one. That is, we have the scientific means to develop antibacterials that overcome known and emerging forms of resistance. It's just not currently profitable enough to do so sustainably. The problem is that our healthcare system strongly encourages the use of generic, older antibiotics, partly for stewardship reasons, but mostly for economic ones. Generics are much cheaper, and thus hospitals will always rely on them first, even when epidemiology and health outcomes suggest you should try newer antibiotics instead. Because the cost of developing new antibiotics is so expensive, i.e., clinical trials to support FDA approval, and because the market is so small, companies cannot make a return on investment. So you get big companies mostly abandoning the space in favor of more lucrative markets, e.g. oncology, and smaller companies, e.g. Achaogen, going bankrupt shortly after bringing their substances to market. There have been legislative proposals to try to fix the market, e.g. Disarm, or more recently, Pasteur. But the congressional will isn't there because anything seen as aiding the pharmaceutical industry is deemed politically radioactive, and so the problem continues to fester. We're in a sad place where a significant number of people die of antimicrobial-resistant infections each year, over 35,000 a year in the U.S., per CDC's 2019 report, but not enough to generate the political will to fix it. Source: I work in science policy, including on this topic. Story 5. If there's ever a nuclear war, you're a lot more likely to survive the weapon effects, blast, heat, and radiation than you are to be eliminated quickly, unless you live within a mile or two of a specific target. You're much more likely to die later as a result of infrastructure collapse, like estimates as high as 90 dead within 12 months in countries like the US. No power grid, no heat AC for most people, heat stress in the summer and hypothermia in the winter, no functional water treatment plants or municipal water supplies in most places, waterborne diseases like typhoid, cholera, and dysentery will come roaring back. Also, most surface waters in the US are already contaminated with Giardia. With municipal water sources offline, people will die of dehydration, or they'll drink whatever they can get sick, and with no medical care, die of dehydration and shock due to diarrheal illness. No functional medical system. Hospitals won't have power, fuel, and medicine won't be delivered. Existing stocks won't be refrigerated. Doctors will be dead or abandon their posts to seek their family's survival. Fuel refineries and gas stations will be offline without a functional power grid, which means modern agriculture and food delivery systems grind to a halt, even if the physical transportation infrastructure, roads, rail lines, bridges, etc., isn't a complete shambles. People who haven't already died of dehydration, exposure, and disease will starve or die fighting over whatever dwindling resources remain. Answer: so, I live in a small country town, and a few years ago we lost power for 4 days. It doesn't sound like long, right? Especially if you're prepped with food and heat source, which we are. It was incredibly eerie the way people acted. Everyone was perfectly reasonable, but there was an overt behavior change in everyone. Everyone. The church groups, the community helpers, everyone. People were scared. We are in a pretty strong farming community, so food isn't an issue, and most people have wood-fired heaters, so heating wasn't an issue. What was wild was everything else happening on the side, which nobody expected, so because of the length of time the mobile phone towers went down, we had no way of accessing money. The petrol station's pumps weren't working, so we had no petrol, no money, no way of communicating with phones. The supermarkets were down, and the town was shut up. At first we were like, woo, spooky zombie apocalypse lulls. Then it got weird with people just being odd. My husband, going to work on day 4, was saying to us, do not let anybody in the property. Keep the gates locked. Keep the doors locked. Stay inside. Do not leave the house. And this was after only 4 days. It also felt incredibly isolating because I couldn't find out if my friends and family were okay either. When we had another big power outage because of a storm, I literally packed up the kids, put everyone in the car, and drove them to my mom's place because I've got some sort of PTSD from that experience, and I didn't come home until the power was back on. That thing of being prepped now feels a bit lame to me because I know we won't on any level be prepared for the shoot that will really go down when a genuine infrastructure collapse happens. Story 6. 18 of all boating accidents are caused by trying to urinate off the side of the boat. My boating instructor gave me the 18th statistic, but the Red Cross tracks accidents and deaths relating to urinating over the side, and many insurance companies warn against it as well. Answer: I fell off the back of our pontoon boat at night that was moving along with my brother driving. Obviously, we had all been drinking, so there's that. Anyway, everyone was partying and listening to loud music, and nobody noticed that I fell off initially. I watched the boat get smaller and smaller as it moved away. I just stayed there treading water. After about 5 minutes, they finally realized I was missing, and then turned around and got the spotlight out and found me after another several minutes. Funny thing is that I never panicked or was worried. Adult beverage helped. Luckily, my head didn't hit the boat or caught up in the prop. Story 7. There are serial killers who are really good at not getting caught, choosing victims carefully, never overhunting, and disposing of evidence some may have up to dozens of bodies responsible for, but no trace will ever be found, not even bones. Answer: I was at Walmart the other day, and by the restrooms there is a local missing persons wall. Given that it's 2024, I have a bit of a difficult time imagining that there are just dozens of people who have been missing for months to years, that have just vanished and never surfaced in one form or another. This isn't the 50s. There are so many more ways to verify and track an individual, or at least one who ever sees the light of day. These people are either captive, less likely, in hiding, or dead. That's difficult for me to comprehend, just as a sheer numbers game. Story 8. You can go to sleep and wake up disabled because your immune system decided a part of your spinal cord looked like a tasty foreign body. Don't think too hard while dreaming just to be safe. Answer: I was relatively fine, general health issues and some chronic pain, but I was okay. I started walking like a tipsy man randomly one week. I lost the ability to walk unassisted in just 2 weeks. Never recovered. Doctors didn't find shoot, but I have a feeling I'll get diagnosed with MS in a few years. We haven't checked the spine for lesions, just the brain. But yeah, it was weird. People ask me, what happened? And it's weird to say. I just got crippled out of the blue in a few weeks, never got better. Story 9. Most medical experts recommend avoiding Tylenol while drinking adult beverage because both of these substances impact your liver. Adult beverage is processed in the liver and puts additional stress on it while being metabolized. Tylenol also is processed in the liver and is very toxic to it in higher doses. Answer: it's actually more sinister than just both adult beverage and Tylenol. Stress the liver, so together they're extra bad. Adult beverage leads to an increase in CYP2E1, one of the metabolic enzymes in the liver. The heightened levels of CYP2E1 cause increased formation of a toxic metabolite of Tylenol, called NAPQI, which is what causes the damage itself. The adult beverage skews the body's processing of Tylenol from a good way to a bad way. Story 10. In 7 states, it's illegal to film inside any kind of agricultural facility, farm, meat processing plant, etc., without the owner's permission, because someone did one time and the video got out, and it caused a huge food recall. Answer: I work in QA for food safety, and you would not believe how hard most, not all, but most food manufacturers try to do everything they can to follow the most lenient interpretations of food safety regulations possible. If I think about it too hard, I start feeling like I should never buy food again and only trust what I personally grow from the earth or catch with my bare hands. Edit to add: I'm going to print these responses out and give a copy to my entire team. We never get such positive feedback. You guys have genuinely brought some sunshine to a job that can sometimes feel ineffective at best. Story 11. If you get furious rabies, you can die within a few days. If you get paralytic rabies, you'll slowly slip into a coma and eventually die. It's almost always fatal and has like a 99 passing rate. Some people just go quicker than others. Story 12. The San Andreas fault line is ready to go whenever. So is New Madrid fault line. If you live closer to the coast, prepare. Story 13. punching someone in the head can eliminate them. I often see people describing it as freak accident or 1,000,000-to-1 shot. It's not. Never punch someone in the head if you're not willing to eliminate them. People need this fact ingrained enough to remember it, even in the heat of the moment. Yeah, that tipsy guy who called your girlfriend a whore deserves his teeth knocked out. But is it worth eliminating him over? If not, don't punch. Answer: this was happening a lot where I live. People getting tipsy and punching someone who would end up dying. It was known as a king hit. Then the media decided to all change the name to a coward punch to try to discourage it. Then they introduced lockout laws for pubs and nightclubs, and I think it helped with the adult beverage-fueled violence, but also completely eliminate the city's nightlife. Story 14. One I learned here on Reddit is, you're not supposed to give newborns water-only formula. The water throws off their electrolytes and could eliminate them. Story 15. Brain-eating amoeba. Never ever swim in stagnant or old water, or water with mold in it. I'm an avid swimmer and I've seen some daredevils post about how it's okay, as long as you're wearing earplugs. Nose clips, but they simply don't understand. The human body has many tiny holes, and our body loves water. Things get in that shouldn't be able to get in. The worst part is, you wouldn't know if you're infected until a few days later. It presents as a normal flu at first. You go to the doc thinks you swam in cold water and gives you flu medicine. The flu medicine doesn't work, and your fever gets worse. Doc gives you meds for fever. By that time, you might as well start drafting your will. Unless the doc knows what they're looking at and searches for it specifically, you're out of luck. Also, wear earplugs if you're a regular swimmer. Swimmer's ear is not good. Story 16. Due to climate change, countries all over the world, big ones like China and Saudi Arabia, are already struggling for food and water to the point that they go to other countries, buy land, and export that country's resources back to their own country. This is happening in Arizona, where Saudi Arabia bought land and created a huge farm. They then used an excessive amount of Arizona's water supply to grow food for their cattle and ship it back. China is buying up chunks of Africa. This is all described in part of the movie, The Grab. Story 17. There are about 300,000 sperm whales in the ocean. They each eat one giant squid a day. So there are enough giant squid in the ocean to support the consumption of 100,000 giant squid a year. We have captured a live one on film once. Story 18. Moderate to heavy drinking can double your risk of some cancers. I am not trying to be a wowser, but I am sure that people do lots of things for health reasons, like working out. But if that's the case, quitting booze might be more effective. Answer: as an alcoholic and a hypochondriac, I already knew this fact, and it plagues me daily as I fight the continuous rising tide. Day in and day out, I'm working with my doctor, and we're making incremental progress in getting me off the sauce, but it's a meanie and a half. I'm not a believer in the AA system. Factoid: the founder of AA's final deathbed request was a glass of whiskey, and to my knowledge, it was denied. I'm not religious, and due to prior court-mandated experience with treatment facilities, not adult beverage related, and seeing the devil may care, lackadaisical, not giving an actual fudge approach that others approached that system with, I don't really think an individual has any more chance at sobriety when supported by a group versus an individual undertaking. Yet, Having knowledge of the risks, I still crave that drink and that release, the reprieve from everyday life and the temporary mental band-aid over the past scars on my heart and soul. It's a vicious, soul-crushing cycle, and knowing this fact just adds to the demoralization factor. To boot. Story 19. You'd think hippos would be lethargic and slow, but no, they're fast swimmers and have greater bite force than a crocodile, a species famous for its bite. Hippos do not prance about in tutus, it seems. Story 20. It's estimated that over 40 million people worldwide are victims of human trafficking, with women and children disproportionately affected. Story 21. Encephalitis, meningitis, can be transmitted by sharing a joint or a slice of pizza or a beer or just inhaling a sneeze. 40 mortality rate or worse. In just a few hours, you could be a stump trying to figure out a new way to feed yourself or wipe your jerk without arms. Answer. MA caregiver for a man that became disabled from meningitis at 13 months old. Thankfully, he's relatively fine, but he's deaf. I believe that was due to the antibiotics. Has major learning disabilities and has multiple short seizures a day. And despite falling almost every day and being over 6 foot tall, he's never broken a bone in his 29 years of life. The sucky part is that once his parents pass away, he'll need to be put in a home. Story 22. One scary fact is that the human brain can continue to feel pain and other sensations even after passing. This is because the nervous system can take up to 10 minutes to shut down completely, causing involuntary muscle spasms and twitching. Additionally, some people have reported experiencing out-of-body experiences or seeing bright lights during near-passing situations, which suggest that consciousness may persist after clinical passing. Story 23. Prion diseases. They can pop up out of nowhere, are 100 fatal, and have no cure. It's caused by proteins in the brain, folding in a different orientation than typical, and acts like an infection, spreading to other proteins, causing them to fold incorrectly as well. This is not a virus or bacteria. It is literally the molecules in your body changing spontaneously. They can also be caused by cannibalism, particularly by eating the brain, though, and even has a specific indigenous name used by tribes in Papua New Guinea that practice cannibalism. Fun facts. This caused the much-hyped mad cow disease. Many people remember BC of Oprah. This is eliminate massive amounts of cervids, deer, moose, caribou, etc. And the only known way to curb the spread is mass culling. Answer. My friends, Dad has just developed CJD. He works with us both as well. He went from a fit 60-year-old bloke who biked into work to not even remembering his name or why he was at work or anything in the space of a couple of weeks. We all thought it was rapid onset dementia, but turned out it was CJD. He only has a couple of months left. My friend, his son, says he's just constantly deteriorating. Story 24. Chemical contamination of the air, our water, our food, the wider environment, etc., is harming us and many life forms on Earth. We are nowhere near to having a solution for this. We are eliminate off living things vital to the ecosystem, bugs, fungi, etc. We haven't even discovered yet, even when it comes to ourselves. There are too many chemicals, in too many combinations and too many other factors for us to have anything close to an accurate idea as to what each is doing to us. Scientists have found microplastics embedded in your balls, eyes, brain, kidneys, etc. we aren't actually sure what harm they may cause. Answer: I was born in the 80s, and it's crazy just the difference in the amount of insects. I remember so many more butterflies as a kid compared to now. Even going on road trips, I remember how the grill of the car would be plastered with insects, but that doesn't happen anymore going along those same routes. I'm not a fan of insects in general, but they are vital to the environment, and seeing how small their populations have become is very scary. Story 25. Generational forgetfulness. We forget the hard work and efforts of previous generations in response to dangers that existed even while they're still alive. We can prepare for something so thoroughly that the preparation itself can be questioned and seem overinflated, even though the issue was only able to be handled that way because of the preparation. An example would be vaccines. With vaccines, we have nearly eradicated quite a few diseases. Yet in just a few generations, we see resurgences of some of them, because people like anti-vaxxers spring up proclaiming them as poison, or believing that non-vaccine remedies will protect them. Answer: similar concept of forgetting between generations, though different context. Shifting baseline syndrome. As the natural world changes due to our impacts, each generation develops a new standard for what is considered truly natural. Based on their own first experiences with the environment, we transform the world, but we don't remember it. Eventually, we only have miserable leftovers and don't even know it. Story 26. I guess my contribution. Mental illness in general. Your brain can up and turn on you at the drop of a hat. I can't even begin to list the ways that this can manifest, but just the fact that it can happen to a normal, healthy, unsuspecting person out of the blue is terrifying. Answer: worse. If you have more than one thing going on, the likelihood of them getting diagnosed and treated properly is virtually nil. Every psychiatrist or therapist will diagnose based on their own specialty, particular experience, religious affiliation, what mood they're in, or probably what they had for breakfast that morning. I've been diagnosed with everything under the sun. I have been told that I have over 20 different things. I've been officially diagnosed with like 12. Hell, I've been diagnosed, then undiagnosed, told that the original diagnosis was wrong, and re-diagnosed as bipolar like 3 times. It's quite possible that every diagnosis is correct, but I sincerely doubt it. Story 27. Tuberculosis was all but eradicated as a disease in the US, except for one particular point of vulnerability. US prisons are an absolute hotspot for tuberculosis, and are the leading cause of its spread back into the population when a prison gets released, and not when someone travels from another country into the US. Due to the close quarters, lack of adequate ventilation, lack of proper health care, inmates often forget or even refuse to take the entire regimen of their pills, even if they are diagnosed and treated. And so many other factors. Tuberculosis thrives and will continue to thrive in American prisons. It's become so problematic that screenings specifically for TB are done prior to incarceration, and somehow it still gets missed more often than not. As for the spread, TB spreads so fast and so effectively that it would make George Romero blush. Zombie outbreak reference. Story 28. One AI-generated image uses the power equivalent of charging your cell phone from 0-100. AI is a huge threat to climate change, but people are too excited about it to realize the damage. Story 29. If you end up needing to give someone CPR, there's about an 88% chance that it won't be successful, and they will die right there in front of you. Life is not like the movies. Answer: but if you don't do it, they will die 100 of the time. I used to be an ED tech, and it was always rough to see families who had called 911 after their loved one collapsed and then never attempted CPR, just waited for the EMTs. They thought we could work a miracle in the ER when their mom-dead brother hadn't had blood flow to the brain for 20 minutes. Pre-hospital CPR is the difference between possible life and certain passing. Lots of people still wouldn't have made it, but I was always so proud of the families, friends, bystanders who tried. Story 30. The most dangerous month to be a medical patient in the US is July, when medical interns have started work bin through hospital orientations. There is overconfidence, incredibly long work hours, rotations, and lack of career-obtained skills and bedside manner. It's great to have an intern or resident because they are enthusiastic to learn about your care, but a gap in hands-on knowledge. Story 31. Recalls and other safety things like if your water is not safe to drink are so poorly told to the public and there isn't a good method yet that contamination is entirely possible. Story 32. It's much easier to impale yourself than most people realize. One wrong fall in the wrong spot and boom, impaled. Story 33. When on fire, your eyeballs will melt out of your sockets before you lose consciousness, as long as you don't suffocate first. Story 34. COVID, SARS-CoV-2, is responsible for cognitive deficits lasting beyond infection duration, and this can be seen even for asymptomatic infections. Answer: I had the breeziest infection in the world. No symptoms, just waiting for the week to be over. Turns out I also developed POTS from catching COVID, which affects my body and my mind constantly, and will possibly stay with me for decades. Even if you think you can deal with having COVID, the pandemic is no joke. People's lives have straight up been ruined by catching COVID, and everyone could be just one bout of the illness away from it. Story 35. Enjoy your life. It could end faster than you think, and there are far worse things than simply not existing anymore. Story 36. Our skin absorbs microplastics from activewear. While we all have microplastics in our system, long workouts with tight-fitting activewear might have a much higher rate of microplastics entering the